something, and then you wait for me to pass the mic to you. So what do you think about that system?
You need to say, what do you think about that system clearing, or what do you think about that system Fritz, so we know which of us is to respond.
Unfortunately, my expression is not transmitted by TeamSpeak.
Where's Fritz, do you know?
Would you care to elaborate on that?
By the way, would you mind just double checking what the YouTube feed looks like?
It still said please stand by 5 minutes 55 seconds. My preferred answer to your previous
comment
that's
great.
would be to smile in silence.
I'm sure you can see me nodding.
The last I heard from Fritz was 2 hours 50 minutes ago. He said he was off to dig the garden.
Just to confirm, you're a two-time world champion, aren't you, Fritz?
Yes, indeed.
And Clyring, Mathew, any particular claim to fame?
I suppose I quote-unquote won the under-18 championship last year.
Okay then.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that we're the strongest under-18 player. Or junior player, if you prefer.
Alright then, I'm going to start in a second. So yeah, just give me a couple of seconds. Hello and welcome to the 2014 Arimaa World Championship Round 2 game between Mathew Brown, otherwise known as browni3141, and Kevin Bartuska, otherwise known as kzb52. I'm Joel Thomas, known to the Arimaa game room as Mega Jester, and our commentators today are Matthew Craven, otherwise known as Clyring, and Carl Yunke, that's Fritzlin. I expect both players are likely present, and we're just waiting for the game to start. Of course, there is a delay as we wait for the moves to filter through the system, and that is a built-in safeguard there. And so, as I say, I'm joined by a two-time world champion, Carl Junke, and our hottest rising star, Mathew. Carl, what do you think about today's game? What do you expect?
Well, clearly Mathew is the favorite, both the higher seed and the greater experience, the higher rating. He's also played in last year's World Championship, so he has more experience. But I had the pleasure of playing KZB just the other day, and he had a winning advantage on me. I was able to somehow swindle a win out of the fact that, but he had me on the ropes. So I think we may be in for an interesting game.
Indeed. I thought Kevin, kzb52, had a bit of a lucky break there against Doc Miente the other day in round 1. He got blockaded twice, well, framed twice, but still he may well be a dark horse. I don't know, what do you think, Mathew?
I have considerable respect for the abilities of Brownie Pie, but don't know much about the other player.
Yes, well, we'll just have to wait and see. As always, ratings are not always the best guide, because, after all, Arimaa is a very changeable game. A game can go back and forth between the two players at the drop of a hat almost, especially in tough skirmishes. What have been the most memorable games for you so far, Fritz?
Well, certainly I'm partial to the rematch from last year, 99 of 9, who was one of the earliest players, who started playing back in 2004, perhaps 2003. Against Thiegor, who only began a couple of years ago, but who managed to take third place in the 2013 World Championship. And in that championship, they met in the third round, and Thiegor beat beat 99 of 9, who was, again, back in 2004, he was the strongest player, but Arimaa theory has come a long way. And he hasn't stayed as active in the community as he once was. Well, they had a rematch then in the second round, and 99 of 9 managed to pull off the upset and avenge his loss from the year earlier. So, as you were saying, anything can happen in any game.
Indeed. How long has it been since you started really taking the game up, Mathew? And what do you make of this championship so far?
My profile says I started in February 2011, but I don't think I actually really started playing the game seriously until August of that year.
And how have you found it this year?
This past year has been fairly quiet. Very few events other than the World Championship have been going on, whereas the year before was quite exciting with lots of interesting things happening.
Indeed. And I think this is perhaps our first YouTube broadcast, and I think it's a good opportunity to maybe introduce the game to a different crowd. And I'm sure that many of our viewers who maybe are watching an Arimaa game for the first time will find that it's fairly easy to get a handle on as a spectator. And the moves are fast-paced. You know, there's no waiting around for half an hour for black to move or white to move. And there's always a lot of discussion going on. Anybody who's watching on YouTube now can, of course, jump in the action by coming over to arimaa.com. watching the game from the game room, where there's also the radio feed, and you can get involved in the chat room as well, and it's all live on YouTube. So we're really moving forward. So yeah. How do you fancy your chances this year, Fritz? I mean, you've won the World Championship twice already, and you are first seeded. So how do you feel this year?
Well, my top seed is a fluke based on my performance in the postal tournament. I think I tend to do better in postal games, partly because my aging brain is slowing down, and partly because my lifestyle may permit me to spend more time on the games than other people have to commit to the games. So just because of going undefeated in the postal tournament, I have the top seed. But I think if there were odds makers on this tournament, it'd be very hard to bet against Chess and Go, against Jean Balaguer, who has won 5 World Championships, I believe. He's the number 3 seed. But in my mind, he's number 1 until proven otherwise. And then Brownie, who's in this game, has only been around for 2 years, but has just risen very rapidly through the ranks. I also rate his chances higher than mine. I would probably, in spite of the seeds, I would probably say I would be number 3 in the lists of the odds makers. But anything can happen in any game. It's triple elimination, so everyone gets to play until they've lost 3 times, and the better player doesn't always win. So there's a lot of excitement in store for us. And I might add that Kevin has been playing the game for less than a year, the silver player in this game. This is his first World Championship, and he has already become quite a strong player just in under a year. That's one of the exciting things about Arimaa, is that because it is such a new game, and because the theory is not so established, it's possible to join in and learn pretty much all the stuff that everybody already knows in a couple of years, and then you are on the forefront of theory. You are the one who is making the new theory, as Brownie is, for example. He's got his own opening setup that he developed himself and is popularizing, and maybe a few other people are using because they see what success he's having with it. But an opening which, according to the standard theory that I wrote, should actually not be optimal.
That's very interesting. What do you make of all of this, Mathew? Do you like Brownie's opening setup?
I have no qualms whatsoever with his silver setup. His gold setup is more questionable in my opinion, at least if he's still using the one I'm thinking of, and I think Fritz is thinking of. But of course, Fritz is absolutely right. We don't do the championship based just on the ratings. We play the games, and we'll just have to see what actually happens.
So Fritz, would you like to just quickly describe for us what that opening setup is of Brownie's?
Well, yes. So according to the standard opening was created by 99 of 9. The most popular opening, the sort of the vanilla opening, very flexible, that has the elephant and the camel in the middle, the 2 strongest pieces in the middle of the board, and it has a horse on the B file and a horse on the F file. Those guard the outsides of the traps. So you've got horses guarding the corners, you've got an elephant and a camel in the middle. Basically the idea is that the elephant in the middle is for attacking, the camel in the middle is for defense, to scare away the enemy horses, take a horse hostage on either side. Now, Brownie likes to set up with a camel and horse on the same wing. Let's say the camel on the B file and the horse on the A file. And that is supposedly, according to, again, the standard theory that Brownie is overturning, but according to what was wisdom in my day, the putting the camel on one side invites the opponent to attack with the horse on the other side. Because there's no camel to scare it off, and if the elephant takes a horse hostage, it's not necessarily a good hostage. So by decentralizing your camel, you open the other wing up to the enemy horse to attack. But Brownie doesn't care. He's got his horse and his camel on that wing, and he's going to hit you harder than you hit him. He doesn't mind if you run in with your horse and maybe pull a rabbit or something like that. It's an attacking setup, and when he's got gold, he figures he can put his camel and horse there on the A and B file, or flip it around, put it on the G and H file, and you will be dancing to his tune.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. We just heard the noises, the sounds coming in, which means I think that they've just both sat down at the table, so I imagine we'll soon be seeing whether or not Brownie actually uses his famed opening setup or not. I hope he does, given that he's live on TV, as he puts it. But yeah, well, in general, Mathew, as a newer player, do you think that you're going to be able to advance Arimaa theory? Do you feel close to that stage?
I feel I've already made some contributions, particularly to how stronger players view endgames, but we'll just see. And the first few moves have come in, and Brownie Pie has indeed used his famed, or perhaps infamous, setup.
I noticed that Kevin has set up with 4 forward rabbits, and I thought I was the only player who was crazy enough to do something like that. This is a setup that I used back when I was successful to have 4 forward rabbits. Well, first of all, I used it as a surprise in the 2005 World Championship, the first time it was ever played in a World Championship. And then I used it extensively in 2007, preparing for 2008 when I won the World Championship again. I actually believe that KZB's setup with 4 rabbits on his second rank is unsound. That it is conceding too much to the opponent to make it too easy for the opponent to pull out rabbits and to take a rabbit hostage. But it's fun, and it's fun to be that aggressive and to respond to Brownie's sort of declaration with his horse and camel on the same wing. Go ahead and pull out one of my rabbits. I got my rabbits forward even before you pull them out.
Well, we see the first few moves being played very rapidly. Brownie's famous or infamous setup, as it were, moving forward very quickly with the elephant in the centre and the horse on the western flank. They're moving up to forcibly take control of the C6 trap, while also keeping Silver's camel to the back rank. I wonder what the best strategy would be from Silver, but as I say that to myself, Silver has just played with bringing the camel, the silver camel, up to the C7 square. How do you fancy Silver's chances against Gold's onslaught, Mathew?
Well, it's by moving his camel over to the west, Silver has immediately made it much more difficult for Gold to actually use an onslaught of pieces. His camel will be ready to take an attacking Gold horse hostage if Gold isn't very careful with this. So I think we'll see now that both camels are on the same wing, the game will probably slow down quite a bit over these next few moves.
Yes, indeed. The camel poses some danger to the Gold horse, and the Gold horse really, has 2 objectives running up the A file. The small prize would be to pull a silver rabbit back and threaten to take that rabbit hostage, or frame the rabbit in the C3 trap, or even capture the rabbit, ideally in C3. That's the small prize, is pulling a rabbit. The big prize is getting the Gold horse into the B6 square. But you notice there's no way for the Gold horse to get into B6 without the gold elephant to pull out the silver horse or the gold camel to pull out the silver horse. And it looks like I see 4G has come in, and Brownie has indeed just pulled the rabbit and retreated the horse, because leaving the horse advance makes the horse vulnerable to the silver camel, which has come over, and advancing the gold camel would have made the gold camel vulnerable to the silver elephant. So he's just taken a very small gain. I'm pulling that rabbit out to the third rank, which Brownie is saying that is a strategic weakness. You can't correct that because rabbits can't move backwards. So you have this little tiny disadvantage, and it's for the whole game. That rabbit is never going back to the second rank. Oh my goodness, and silver just kicks it to him, bringing that camel out. I don't even know what to think of that.
Has this happened before in games where Brownie has used his famous opening strategy, Fritz, from what you've seen?
Well, normally he's very insistent on attacking rather than pulling out a piece. He's very eager to get control of that B6 square. It's a little bit out of character for him to just pull a rabbit and fall back. That's something that I would tend to do much more conservative. But there's always a danger if you start pulling too many rabbits and you start getting the opposing pieces on your side, you might have the other person set up to swarm you, and the other person might even attack with their camel and let you take their camel hostage, because if you take their camel hostage, it'll be behind the swarm. Again, I wouldn't have made this attack by silver because it's premature. He has one rabbit on the third rank. It's not like he has a whole army right behind the camel. So his advancing the camel is very likely to give it up to the gold elephant as a hostage, unless he just runs right back, retreats with that camel immediately. He's going to give up that camel as a hostage, and it'll be good for a brownie.
And it should all... I mean, one thing that does make this somewhat interesting, though, is that with both camels on the same wing, a camel hostage is somewhat less valuable when the opponent's camel has to spend time moving across the second rank to reach the other side of the board to exercise its power, but even still, I agree with you. Silver will probably need to lose time retreating his camel if he wants to keep it safe here.
Yeah, I got it. Well, and so the camel does retreat, and it's an interesting retreat because it's threatening to capture the gold horse, but tactically that doesn't work. On 6G, the gold elephant can come into the B5 square while the gold horse retreats to B4. And so gold is able to, on 6G, take the silver camel hostage. It's not in ideal position yet, but the silver camel will not be able to retreat. And so gold can already get a camel hostage with no disadvantage. Didn't have to sacrifice a cat for it, didn't have to sacrifice other position for it. I fully expect on 6G Brownie to take the silver camel hostage by moving the elephant to C4 to C5, unfreezing the gold horse from B5 back to B4, and the gold elephant then from C5 over to B5. And although the silver camel wouldn't be frozen because it's got a rabbit next to it, the only direction it could move was forward, deeper into enemy territory.
Indeed, so... you almost got the cookie, Fritz. Almost right. Just probably worth reminding our newer viewers that, of course, a hostage is when you use the freezing capability of your pieces, particularly the elephant, to pin down a strong opposing piece, and then the threat of capture means that the opposing elephant is forced to stand guard over that trap. So, of course, tying your opponent's elephant down puts you at a considerable advantage when you're trying to gain control over other traps and force captures. So this is an interesting move. It would seem that Brownie isn't interested in the camel hostage immediately, or could this be a way to consolidate that hostage situation? I mean, what do you think, Mathew?
I'm not entirely sure what to make of his advancing his own camel one square from b2 to b3 instead of placing his elephant on the b5 square.
Well, perhaps he was responding to just what you were talking about, Clearing, that that taking the camel hostage on the wing where your own camel is somewhat less favorable because it's hard for your camel to get out. The advantage of taking the camel hostage is that your camel becomes the strongest free piece, but your camel is not the strongest free piece if it's stuck on the second rank behind the whole hostage constellation. So maybe he wanted to make sure that if I'm going to take the silver camel hostage, I want my own horse and my own camel to be more active. And also, as I looked at the possibilities for 6S, there wasn't even a fantastic retreating move for the silver camel. Because the C6 trap wasn't defended from the back. On 6S, the silver horse was hanging. And so a fairly typical way to have retreated the camel would have been to move it into b5, move the rabbit up to a5 to unfreeze the camel, and then get the horse out of the way and get the camel back. Well, okay, so the camel hostage has been taken now on 7G, and taken in an interesting way. By putting the gold horse in front of it. That sort of contradicts what I thought he was doing about trying to make sure the gold horse was out and active. But I would not be at all surprised if, I mean 7S here, a move that would be consistent with the way KZB has played so far, is just to push the camel forward a square and follow up the two rabbits right behind the camel. And the idea being that, as you said, Megajester, Brownie seems a little bit reluctant to take a camel hostage. That's not the way he normally plays. Not that he doesn't know how to take a camel hostage or how to use it, but he prefers to be contesting control of the opposing traps. That's what he would normally rather be doing. And so just charging with your camel, giving it up as a hostage, and forcing him to play that kind of game might actually be a clever gambit, even if it's not objectively best. Sometimes you play the man rather than playing the board.
Just watching the chat room feed here, Quad A proposes that the rabbit advance along the A file is not quite consistent with a camel hostage, which may well be true if the objective is to bring the camel all the way down to the C3 trap. But of course, time has moved along. It waits for no man, as they say, and the silver elephant has moved to occupy the there, thus considerably pinning down the horse, the gold horse, on the A file there, and we see that all the heavy pieces are all smashed up against the A and B files there. I'd be interested to know what you make of the situation, Mathew or Clyring.
Well, regarding the rabbit advance with the camel hostage, it's true that if the rabbit stays on a3, it's going to get in the way of gold ever taking the camel hostage. But in the long term, it's not entirely inconsistent with the basic ideas of taking a camel hostage to advance a rabbit on the hostage wing just to contest space. If silver needs to spend to use a couple of pieces to block that rabbit on the A file further back, then that's a couple more pieces silver can't use to contest control of the C3 trap.
Well, the gold camel has moved off of the wing, and so all the pieces, as we noted, all the heavy pieces were on the A and the B file, but there's a difference. The gold camel has the option of switching wings, and the silver camel doesn't have the option of switching wings. Also, the silver elephant, the thing that elephants love to do most is torture opposing camels. So the silver elephant would love to run and be next to the gold camel, but it's not really free to do so. So what this hostage constellation is doing right now is pinning both elephants and the silver camel on one side. So as long as both elephants and one camel stay in the west, then in the east, the gold camel is the strongest piece. So we talk about one side or the other having the strongest free. That is, the elephants are tied down, neither elephant they are, so the gold camel is the strongest free piece, and that's an advantage to gold. Now here, the elephants are not very tied down, they're only somewhat tied down. And here I see 8S come in, and the camel does advance. Now, I think that's the correct idea to advance the camel. I think it's a move too late. Because the camel, before the elephant moved into the B4 square, the camel could have pushed forward all on its own. The camel didn't need the silver elephant to pull the horse out of the way. And so here we have that camel-led swarm that I was talking about, basically forcing the gold elephant to take the silver camel hostage. That swarm is coming, and it's a move later than it would have come otherwise.
Indeed. It would be interesting to me to know exactly what Silver's game plan is. Well, we've just had 9G come in now, and we see Gold's elephant moving down again to regain its stranglehold over the silver camel, which is budged up against the A file again. And meanwhile, on the other wing, over in the east, the gold horse feels brave enough to go up and challenge the F6 trap, clearly because Silver's elephant is tied down around C3. So, yeah. Any observations, Claring?
Yes, the gold elephant is actually starting to look potentially dangerously decentralized on its current square. I noticed that it's actually possible for Silver to immediately establish a blockade on the B square, and the gold elephant is starting to look perhaps a bit out of place where it is currently on B4.
On 9S just in, the noose seems to be tightening around that blockade. So let's see if that really does transpire the way you expected, Matthew. We see the silver horse coming down just below the C6 trap and the cat coming in alongside it. So it would seem that camel hostage is turning into an elephant blockade, one of the exciting twists and turns you see every day in the normal game of Arimaa. Looking at the position, Fritz, would you say that advantage is now accruing to Silver?
Not at all. This is definitely advantage to gold. I love playing these kind of positions as gold. Because the advantage that gold has is that gold has the strongest free piece. That silver elephant cannot leave. That silver elephant is tied to the defense of C3. However, it is not strongly tied to the defense of C3. That is, if the silver elephant left right now, silver would not lose a piece on the very next turn. So this isn't the ideal square for gold to be holding the silver camel hostage on. In fact, gold wants to be holding the silver camel hostage on the A3 square rather than the A4 square, because if you were on the A3 square, then silver couldn't leave without losing the camel on the next move. This is what AAA was talking about when he said advancing the gold rabbit to A3 was not very consistent, because it takes away the square on which gold wants to be holding that camel hostage. Nevertheless, what is the silver elephant going to do? At most, the silver elephant right now could run over to the other side and threaten the gold horse, and if he did that, then he would lose at least a horse. So there's no way that the silver elephant could gain anything.
Oh yes, I don't mean to suggest that the silver elephant is by any means free here. I'm just suggesting that the gold elephant is itself not immediately going to be able to leave if silver advances further pieces along the A, B, and C files. It's going to take time for the gold elephant to leave. But at the same time, the gold elephant doesn't need to leave immediately. It's doing a perfectly good job of restraining the silver camel and keeping the silver elephant there guarding silver pieces right where it is for the time being.
Well, this horse charge on 10S has totally changed the character of the position anyway. Now, the silver camel, the gold camel, which has switched over to the east, the gold camel is obliged to run back to the west to deal with this horse incursion. And I would say, again, just like the camel hostage in the first place, I would say this move by KZB is objectively bad to run the horse forward. Objectively bad, but subjectively perhaps good, in the sense of playing the board and not playing the man. Oh, but here we have some punishment on 11G. Gold is attempting to frame the horse, and if the horse steps out of the trap, the gold camel will just capture it, flip it over into F3. It'll be frozen as soon as it steps out. So silver's only option here is to break that frame, but to break the frame, the silver camel is already in position to break the frame. It can push forward now because the rabbit came out from behind, the A2 rabbit left from behind the A3 rabbit, so the A3 rabbit could be pushed back once, possibly be pushed back twice. The move that I saw first here as silver is to just push that camel forward twice. And if the gold elephant wants to go take it hostage way down on A2, then bury the gold elephant. I like gold's position. I think gold's move is a good way to punish that horse incursion. That horse frame is just very nasty for silver. But silver can at least threaten to break the horse frame by pushing that camel forward and forcing the elephant to go burrowing back in after towards the camel.
Well, I'm not so sure about pushing toward the A2 square with the silver camel immediately on move 11S, because while the gold elephant is quite decentralized if it decides to restrain the silver camel there, the silver elephant is still not easily able to leave because this allows gold to secure the frame proper even without his elephant, and the silver camel, if it's held on A2 by the gold elephant, will never be able to break it. Gold can get his other horse over to rotate his camel out at some later date.
Do you have any suggestion other than advancing the silver camel? Anything that doesn't practically lose a horse?
Well, it seems that KZB really did see that this was the only option. He went deep into reserve time to do so. As you know, these game controls are relatively short. Each player has 60 seconds a move and 4 minutes of reserve. Whatever seconds are left over from the move are added to the reserve up to that maximum. But KZB really did dip into that reserve to find a way to save his horse, apparently. And the chat room does look a bit pessimistic for Silver's position. It really does look a bit dire for Silver because he has the frame there for the horse. So that means that with the horse trapped in C3 and unable to move out, the elephant can't even budge. It can't even go away for 2 steps and then come back in the same move. The minute it steps away, the horse is lost. So such a situation is a very, very big advantage for gold, winning a material advantage, either severely restricting the elephant's movement or just winning a horse outright. So Silver's main priority is to try and save that situation. So now we have 12G in. The cat has come along to A1, thus preventing the silver camel from pushing through, and also cementing the blockade around C3, the frame, really putting silver in a difficult position, leaving the strongest free piece, as it were, on the eastern side of the board, a straight contest between those two horses up there around the F6 trap. So you've had a couple of minutes to look at the situation. I don't know what are Silver's prospects, do you think, Matthew?
Now that the move 12G has been played, it is extremely clear that Gold has achieved some kind of advantage here. The silver camel cannot move at all. It is in a blockade. The silver elephant can move, but only by abandoning the silver horse capture in the trap. I suppose if you want to look at it just as a naive evaluation, both sides have an elephant, a camel, and a horse stuck around the C3 trap, and yet Gold has a completely dominating position here because Gold's camel can be replaced by his horse currently on the G5 square. I was looking at the move 11s that was actually played when Fritz asked me if I could find something other than advancing the silver camel into A2 immediately, but then the move 12G that was played is absolutely crushing. There is almost no play left here for silver.
Yes, there was a move on 11s, but I didn't see until after the move was played. The horse could have stepped out, going back to 11s now, the horse could have stepped out of C3 to D3, where it would have been frozen by the silver camel, but then the silver elephant could have come over to D4, allowing unfreezing the silver horse and allowing the silver horse to push into the D2 square. So silver actually could have kept all the balls in the air by pushing his horse into D2. I didn't see that fast enough, and apparently neither did Kevin. But now, as you say, clearing strategically, the game is over here. Silver is basically as good as down a horse. Because eventually the elephant will be compelled to move and the horse will be lost. Your idea of rotating the horse into where the gold camel is and letting the camel be the strongest free piece would have been sufficient. But this rotating the gold elephant out is even better, because now the gold camel doesn't have to budge. The gold elephant can do the damage. And that's even more devastating. So basically, in this position, silver is behind by a horse.
Yes, the played move 12s by failing to place a piece on the B5 square to prevent the maneuver Gold performed on move 13G. The gold elephant is no longer needed to prevent the silver camel from breaking the frame, and now Gold is even more strongly in control of the position here.
Yes, all the moves have been moving on fairly swiftly. There was a suggestion from Odin73 in the chat room on 13S that the silver elephant could just abandon his horse in C3 to its fate and move over to G4, which would have, of course, frozen the gold horse on G5 and could have eventually formed an exchange of the two pieces. Could that have been a possibility?
Well,
such a move.
Go ahead.
Such a move could have been played, but I think it still ends fairly badly for silver. Silver is not just losing the B4 rabbit in addition to his horse, but after the B4 rabbit and the C3 horse have been taken, while the silver elephant is off capturing a horse in the east, Gold then gets to take the silver camel hostage, and now silver has two less pieces advanced on that wing, and with no advanced pieces in front of the silver camel, it's just immediately taken hostage in this case. And then silver no longer has a frame to worry about, but has a deadly hostage to worry about.
Yeah, I suppose one could make the case that being down, the silver's position is now so bad that it's worse than having a horse trade and then losing a rabbit on top and losing a camel hostage on top. So that being down a camel hostage and a rabbit would not have been as bad as he is off now. So it's worth consideration in that light, but it certainly wouldn't have gotten Silver out of trouble.
Well, we just now see on 15S that KZB has bitten the bullet, given up his horse and decided to bring his camel into play on B3 around the C3 trap, and appears to be trying to get his elephant back in the game. I'm not sure exactly what for. Perhaps he's going to try to retake control of the C3 trap, and it occurs to me that if I were gold, of course I'm a much lesser player than Brownie, I could overplay myself in the rest of the board, forgetting my situation in the southwest, and perhaps allow Silver to sneak a couple of rabbits through on the A and B file if I were to leave that too thinly guarded. I don't know, do you think that Silver could get a look in now, Matthew?
Silver does have some kind of attack around the C3 trap now that he has willingly abandoned his horse to its fate, but this is only a trap control attack. It's not really a goal attack. He has a couple of advanced rabbits. Those are helpful for obtaining space, but as it is, Gold just has entirely too many pieces on that wing for an immediate goal attack to have any realistic chance of actually breaking through.
Indeed, if Gold would just spare one step to move his C1 rabbit to B1, it's just impossible to get through. On the other hand, 16G turns out to be a defensive move. I'm astonished by 16G because I agree with Clearing's assessment that the goal threat is not for real. I would have taken the silver dog and been quite happy to be ahead materially by a dog and a horse, but perhaps there was a strong tactical threat that I didn't see. I was going to say that 15S failed to make a tactical threat. That is, it gave up the silver horse and didn't make a tactical threat in addition, which meant that it also gave up the silver dog. But apparently there was some threat that Brownie saw that I did not, that he thought was worth bringing his elephant over and foregoing capturing the silver dog on 16G.
Well, there may not even have been a threat here, although there was no goal attack to be had. It's not to be discounted that Silver definitely did have a trap control attack going here with his camel and his rabbits fairly strongly occupying G3. Gold seems to be subscribing to the safety first philosophy with regards to exploiting his advantage here.
Well, I'm always a big fan of safety, and I'm also a big fan of camel hostages. It looks like Gold is threatening to retake a camel hostage, and Silver, having failed to occupy B5 once before, now remembers to occupy B5, and in fact builds a phalanx on C6. Oh, this is cute now. On 17G, Gold can capture a rabbit. So it looks like the Gold move, but the camel can sidestep, and then the horse can get out of the trap. Then that gives a square for the elephant to move into, and the elephant can move into his own trap on C3, pull the rabbit after him, capturing the rabbit on C6, and then also threatening to take the silver camel hostage on the next move. So that 16S superficially looks like, oh no, the gold elephant is blockaded, but not really. It actually loses the rabbit and eventually also loses or gives up the camel as a hostage.
It's a shame, it looked like such a good idea. Well, I don't know if perhaps Brownie really was, maybe it's just as you said, he was trying to take a hostage with the camel there, and he saw an opportunity. It had occurred to me that, especially when you're in the thick of things and you're in the match situation, there can be a kind of psychological impact of the opponent deciding to give up on a piece that has been framed because that frame was a given in your mind, and then you see the opponent giving up on the frame, and it of course completely changes the situation. And I just wondered if perhaps Gold here might have felt a need to consolidate his position by rushing over to the c3 trap, or maybe not, as you say. Of course, you've just had 17g, just as Fritz said, capturing the rabbit on c6. Where now for silver? Would you like to comment on that, Claring?
The positions remain actually fairly similar to what it was prior to this move, just silver now has one rabbit less. Silver is now seemingly trying to go for some kind of goal attack along the b file, but it's not clear to me that this is going to actually get anywhere.
Well, yeah, certainly just shifting rabbits along the first rank could stop it, but it's an intriguing move. I like 17s. Now we've got a rabbit advanced, and if the gold elephant doesn't push out of the trap, supposing like gold takes 3 steps in order to bring his c1 rabbit to b1 and his e1 rabbit to c1, that's 3 steps. He wouldn't have 2 steps to push his elephant back off the trap, and then his elephant could be blockaded blockaded on the trap where it is. So this is, I mean, Brownie of course is definitely winning, but he has to be a little bit careful. I mean, I think that he could allow his elephant to be blockaded on the c3 trap. And still be winning. The goal can be stopped just by sheer mass of pieces, not by strength of pieces, but by having so many pieces in the area that there's nowhere for anything to move. And then the silver elephant would not be able to leave the scene and become the strongest free piece in another theater. The silver elephant would be essential to that blockade, to holding that constellation in place. So effectively gold would still have the strongest free piece once the dust settled. So I think, again, safety first, I think that the rabbits have to slide over, completing the blockade.
Brownie decides to go different, so, retreating the elephant to c2, and therefore stopping, of course, the silver camel in its tracks, but of course leaving the silver elephant centralized, and committing his own elephant to the general area of the c3 trap. It looks like that might be a mistake for that purely theoretical reason. What do you think, Matthew?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the purely theoretical reason?
Just simply that having an elephant on c2 has to be bad because it's decentralizing your elephant.
It is decentralized. It is at least doing something in its decentralized position. But I'm not really a fan of this move for exactly the reason you mentioned, that the gold elephant is now quite decentralized, and it's not even clear that silver will absolutely need his elephant to maintain control of the c3 trap in the short term.
Indeed, he's got 2 sides of the c3 trap with the cat and a rabbit. By occupying the c3 trap, now it's a little bit dicey because silver has lost so much material, because silver is down by a horse and a rabbit. To say silver, but silver in compensation does now have the strongest free piece. The silver elephant is free. and if the silver elephant were to leave, gold would be able to regain control of the c3 trap, but not immediately. And so the silver elephant is somewhat free and can make some mischief, and there's the immediate threat, if gold doesn't do anything, the immediate threat for silver to flip the gold horse from d3 to d5, threatening to capture it and get his horse back. So retreating the elephant back to c2 and allowing silver to stuff c3 makes it much easier to blockade the gold elephant. I think that actually was a concession to back out of c3 rather than just sliding rabbits across and stuffing up the goal line.
Indeed, advanced. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Strategically speaking, the gold elephant can't really make progress around c3 here, and neither can gold's other major pieces as long as the silver elephant is floating in center. Gold in the long term will almost certainly be looking to rotate his elephant out of the c2 square using small pieces.
So we see 19G now, the camel has come out to threaten the silver horse, saying, well, you take my horse, I take your horse. Trades generally will favor the player who is ahead. However, the silver is not obliged to flip that gold horse out immediately. He could first, say, move his rabbit from f6 to f5, retreating the silver horse to where it's not immediately in danger. Perhaps even retreat the dog so that the only target would be that silver rabbit out on f5, saying, okay, now the only target I'm giving you is rabbit on f5. Are you going to go after that while I go after your horse, or are you going to try and find some other solution to my elephant taking your horse?
But silver can even do the first two steps of your suggested move, but spend the remaining two steps pulling out the gold horse with his on the 4 square, and it's posing some kind of question to gold. How do you want to retreat this horse? Because I'm not going to let you have a big enough counter threat in the east. And it's not easy to retreat the horse. The horse can only retreat westward, where the silver elephant can still just follow it and freeze it and isolate it. So I do not like how Brownie Pie has handled these last few moves at all.
Yeah, this position has suddenly become very exciting. I hope KZB retreats the silver horse and keeps the tension rather than flipping out the gold horse and resolving tension in potentially a trade. Oh wow! So that is even somewhat slower than your suggested move, clearing. I think that given that move, taking all 4 moves to move the silver elephant around the horse means that now gold will almost surely attempt to trade horses rather than attempting to save his horse. So if he pulls on 20G, if he pulls the silver horse from f5 to f4, pulling it down with the camel, then the gold horse follows from g5 to g4 with the camel. The gold horse can follow from g6 to g5 to prevent the silver horse from being unfrozen from behind.
Well, it seems the chat room doesn't like 19S. It seems that it either finds it too slow or too weird, and it does appear, at least to my mind, that again, it, of course, apart from being a slower way to take the horse trade, it does appear to withdraw Silver's, of course, biggest and strongest piece just one step further away from f6, leaving open perhaps the possibility of gold having designs over the f6 trap and making captures there. but now we have 20G, and as predicted, the gold camel has brought the silver horse down to G4 in preparation for a one-move capture on F3, and has also brought gold rabbit to E3, which would appear to be designed to hamper the movement of the silver elephant. What's your interpretation of the position, Matthew?
First, I would like to note that I think that even if the silver elephant were to just disappear, gone off the board for the rest of the game, silver still probably has enough small pieces around on the board outside of the C3 area that he will be able to maintain control of the F6 trap indefinitely unless gold is willing to pull pieces forward for capture in the F3 trap.
I think it's a bit disappointing that that silver is only going to get a horse trade out of this. So that's a minor victory here for Brownie. Nevertheless, the conundrum of the stuck gold is still remains. So although Kevin a huge material deficit, and the material deficit remains after the horse trade, he still has some play. His elephant is the strongest free piece. It is free. The gold elephant is not free, and that makes this position still somewhat interesting, despite the huge material disparity.
So we see the material exchange, lots of horse trading going on, with silver capturing the gold horse in C6, taking a little bit longer than perhaps he needed to do so, but still the trade is complete, and as Fritz mentions, silver still has has that position over C3 with a gold elephant almost trapped. So to my own mind, it would seem that another silver piece may perhaps in D3 or in that area would even hamper gold's elephant sufficiently for silver's elephant to come across to the east and have a go at the gold camel. Would that be correct? Or what do you think? What do you think, Fritz?
Well, I'm very surprised that the gold dog did not move into D3. Well, okay, so if the gold dog moves into D3, it gets flipped out. But now, the move that I expect is for the silver elephant to step to the side from D4 to E4, and then one of the silver dogs to jump into C3, just to make the silver elephant even more free. By even more free, I mean that that the silver elephant is gone. Gold can start. Oh, how am I going to retake control of the C3 trap to free my own? But it's going to take an enormous amount of time. I don't know, or maybe like Clearing says, there are enough small pieces there that no amount of time would suffice. It would also need the gold horse or the gold camel. So this has turned into a very live position, let's say strategically, that that silver definitely has some play here.
I agree. The play 22s is just too strong to allow. Even worse, it in addition to enforcing some control over C3 without the silver elephant, now it makes it very, very difficult for gold to ever rotate his elephant out of C3 without allowing the silver camel access to the C2 square, which is what gold would ideally have liked to accomplish around the C3 trap. over several of the past moves. Now, if he does that at any time in the foreseeable future, whatever piece he puts on c2 can just be captured as the silver dog on d3 steps north, the silver rabbit in the trap steps east, and the silver camel pushes whatever piece that was into the trap.
So it seems to be that Brownie pulled back his camel on 23G, and with an eye to potentially regaining control of the C3 trap, so that the silver elephant can't leave. But the silver elephant, well, if the silver elephant comes to F4 and the silver dog to E4, then the gold camel even quickly get at the C3 trap, because the gold rabbit is in the way, and suddenly the gold elephant is making a serious threat to capture the gold horse. And you wonder, well, will the gold horse also retreat, or what? So it's getting very ticklish for Brownie, because it's going to be slow for him to make progress, and something like the move I was suggesting was just played on 23S, although I hadn't suggested that last step of the elephant F4 north, because that does allow the camel to come across to the north. Maybe that's not a good idea, though.
Yes, indeed. And even if the gold horse does retreat, if gold is just retreating all of his pieces, he can't retreat everything. He can't retreat his rabbits, and if he plays passively, he will just be slowly munched upon by the silver elephant and the silver cat, pulling forward gold rabbits and capturing them in f6. So gold's only plan at this point has to be to fight for c3 and get his elephant away from c3 without giving up too much as compensation there.
So if the gold horse, so I think you have outlined a game plan. The rabbits can't retreat, but Brownie can afford, with his material advantage, he can afford to lose a rabbit or two if he retains control of the game. If he regains control, not retains control. So it would take several rabbit captures before Kevin had equalized the material, and that takes a long time to capture all those rabbits. They're not in capturable position. Ideally, Silver would like to not to have to get his elephant way over on the G file, or go hunting too far afield. He wants his elephant to stay near where the camel is, so that would mean like maybe a cat or a dog trying to threaten to capture rabbits. A very ticklish game of how Silver can make progress without giving up the stranglehold he has on c3, or how much he gets in exchange for giving up his stranglehold on c3.
Yes, well, as we had mentioned earlier in the game, the camel advance really is a two-edged sword, because on the one hand it presents a hostage opportunity for the other player, as we saw earlier in the game, but now with the silver pieces swarmed around c3, there is no immediate capture threat for the gold camel, and to the contrary, it's now the silver camel pinning down the gold elephant, because the gold elephant has to stand guard to prevent the silver camel from getting a rabbit through. So gold must carefully rotate the elephant out, and by rotation we mean bringing pieces to ensure that the silver camel is unable to push through. But now we've just had 24S with the silver elephant feeling free to go up all the way to G6 to harass the gold horse up there on the H file, and now we've just had 25G with the gold camel rotating itself around and gradually, slowly but surely, making its way along to the C3 trap to rescue the elephant that maybe shouldn't have come down to C2 in the first place, all the way back there. So yeah, what do you make of 25G, Matthew?
I think it's the first step in a plan that Gold has already probably delayed and taking forward too long. That Gold has really is going to need to make sacrifices if he wants to untangle here. Silver does have to be somewhat careful though. The weak link in Silver's position that will give Silver headaches all day long if Gold can ever access it is his rabbit on the A4 square. If Gold can ever get any piece unfrozen on the B4 square, the game is over. Gold is just going to advance that A3 rabbit straight up the A file, and there's nothing Silver can do about it. So if Gold can do that while the Silver elephant is decentralized, then the game is somewhat over. So Silver does have to take some care with his elephant on the G7 square here, that he does not decentralize it too much or for too long and allow the gold camel to make such shenanigans.
Well, my gut reaction to move 24S with the silver elephant chasing the gold horse was that it's too slow. The silver, I mean, I can't work out all the tactical details so fast, but just my gut feeling was the time that it takes you to capture that gold horse, Kevin, that gold camel is going to do too much damage. You cannot afford to capture that gold horse. Now, how that's working out remains to be seen. If Silver only loses, if Silver manages to capture the gold horse and only lose one minor piece and get the elephant back into play before he loses control of C3, well, then that's a huge win. Then Silver's winning the game. But it looks to me like in exchange for that horse, Silver's going to lose two minor pieces or lose control of C3, which is ball game over if you lose control of C3. So it looks like it's playing out sort of the way my intuition was when I saw 24S. When I said that it was going to be this sort of cat and mouse game, can Silver make progress without losing too much? I was sort of thinking Silver cannot afford to go directly after the horse like he did. Well, we'll see how it plays out here. Here Gold is going to get one piece, is going to get the cat in F3 in exchange for the horse, and what else will he get? Looks like he'll also get the silver dog in F3. Two pieces for the horse. I think it was too costly. I think Gold has managed to save this position tactically.